It's July 11th, 1879. A sweltering, humid as heck day, I assume, in Concord, North Carolina. And it was on this day that Gaston Bullock Means was born. And it wasn't long before he learned that he had a knack for getting people to believe him, whether he was telling them the truth or not. And he probably wasn't. He swindled. He lied. He conned. He joined the FBI. He even got involved in the infamous Lindberg Baby kidnapping. His life was a Mr. Toad's wild ride of flim-flam. And I'm going to tell you all the shenanigans, from Shin to Ann to Iggins. Shin, Ann, Iggins, shenanigans.
Oh, I was like, who are these characters that have been brought in at the last minute?
To Remember, a podcast about history, mystery, and did you know that a sucker's born every minute may not have been said by P.T. Barnum? He is the person that phrase is generally attributed to, but there is no actual proof he ever said it at all, much less coined it. It could just be that it was a common phrase gamblers used in the 1800s.
History's full of nonsense and lies, isn't it, Paul, when you think about it? Never believe a quote. I think it was Franklin who said that.
Oh, I think Abraham Lincoln is the one.
Could have been.
Hello, my name is Paula, and joining me to let this promise in me start like an anthem in my heart is my co-host, Matthew Jude, a man whose eyes will not be blinded by the lights from now on.
Don't get me started.
I thought he might start singing because I mentioned P.T. Barnum, and this is a song that Matthew loves from The Greatest Showman.
Don't get me started, right? Because once I start...
Do it. We want you to start. Everyone in the audience is like, sing, Matthew, sing it.
That's never happened, and it won't be happening today.
From now on, these eyes will not be blinded by the lights.
Wow, you took a different tuning to it.
That's why you have to sing it, because you know it.
Then what happened?
You want to know what's the difference between Paula and Matthew? It was that moment. Because if it had been the other way around, nothing could have stopped me from singing.
You did sing.
And I did sing. Whoever said a sucker's born every minute, I'm pretty sure that Gaston Bullock Means lived his life with that as his motto. His father was a lawyer and the mayor of Concord, and his mother came from money. She was like a Mississippi heiress. Whatever that means. Whatever. She was from Mississippi and her family had money.
It means that she probably owned a steamboat.
I just went up. It's like the old-timey version of a yacht. Yeah, of course, we're having a party on our steamboat going up and down the Mississippi today.
Could you imagine how many mosquitoes there were at those events?
Ugh.
Too many.
If you're wondering, yes, this is a follow-up to our last episode about the strange death of President Harding. This is a character, Gaston B. Means, who is brought up in that. And then as I looked into him a little more, I was like, wait, he did what? So he gets his own episode.
We've already mentioned P.T. Barnum in this one, and that's an episode desperate to happen at some point.
That could be its own. It is on my list of things to possibly research. The story goes that Gaston grew up helping his dad, who was a lawyer, with trials. And by helping, I mean threatening, intimidating, roughing up, and bribing. And if that's to be believed, there wasn't a good foundation of ethics being laid out for Gaston. After Gaston dropped out of the University of North Carolina, now some places will say he graduated, but I'm pretty sure that's a lie. He just told people he dropped out. He did not graduate. But after that, he somehow got a job as the superintendent of schools in Albemarle, North Carolina. He did this for 2 years. And I really only mention this because I know Albemarle. I grew up going there for like marching band competitions, just this small North Carolina town, Albemarle. And so I'm like, I know that place. So that's why it was worth mentioning.
You said the word 3 or 4 times, but I couldn't tell you what letters are in the place name that you've said.
Albemarle?
Albemarle?
Albemarle.
Like Alba Balmoral or Albemarle?
Albemarle.
We've already said it too many times. It's lost all meaning.
I never thought about how it's kind of a strange word, but looking at it now, yeah, it kind of is, I guess. After that, he worked as a salesman for a while with a textile company. Okay, I'm going to pull back the Southern because I felt it happening. He worked as a salesman for a while with a textile company, and that had him traveling a lot. And because of that travel, he decided to move to New York City.
New York City!
But he couldn't stay in New York for long and soon found himself running away from the Big Apple to Chicago. You see, Matthew, he'd met a woman, Edith Catherine Poole, and he'd promised Edith that he'd marry her.
He was lying.
He was lying. He broke things off. So she brought a breach of promise suit against him, which is a thing you used to be able to do. If a man said, I'll marry you, and then didn't, the woman whose reputation was much more easily tarnished back in the day might have a hard time getting married after that. Because everyone was going to be like, well, she's not a virgin anymore because she was engaged to that guy. You know they already did it.
Well, I imagine it's more that guy didn't like her. There must be something wrong with her.
There's definitely it was harder. It was just different back then. And yeah, so you could bring a breach of promise suit against someone who broke off an engagement with you.
How romantic.
So romantic. Gaston was like, consequences? I don't think so. And he fled to Chicago to avoid actually having to deal with that suit.
Reasonable.
I always say just, you got a problem, run away from it.
You do say that.
I've said it more than once.
You said it once, and I could only barely make out what you were saying because you were already so far away.
I was running away. But Gaston really liked New York, so he traveled back and forth between the two cities a lot. And on one of these train journeys, he fell from the bed in a Pullman car and bonked his head real good, which led him to seek damages from the train company. Also, he'd apparently just taken out some insurance policies should any sort of accident befall him.
Oh, that's convenient. That's what you buy it for, though, isn't it, Paula? That's why you get the insurance.
That's why you get it, because next week I might fall out of a bed on a train car and need to sue somebody for some money or something.
I like him so far.
Just a real, we'll call him an opportunist. How about that?
Sounds positive.
In 1914, he starts working as a private detective for William J. Burns. So this is who I mentioned in the Harding episode would eventually become head of the FBI.
Yes.
Gaston Means is a great detective. He's always able to get the evidence he needs to prove a case. Just because he had to rough some people up to get it, or bribe them, or make the evidence up and plant it. I mean, who are we to question these techniques?
How is this different to any other 1914 detective?
What's a little breaking and entering and falsifying if it gets the job done and the bills paid?
He's got a gun!
And then Gaston thought it was time he stepped things up a little and become a German spy.
Hold on a second. Are you saying he became a spy for America in Germany? Or are you saying he became a spy in America for Germany?
Yeah, that one.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't like him anymore.
Yeah. So at this point, the U.S. hadn't joined the war yet. Because it's 1914.
Classic.
And the U.S. didn't join until right at the last minute, 1917, where it's after a big family meal. And then 30 minutes after, you go, oh, do y'all need any help cleaning up in the kitchen? And they're like, oh, we just finished. And you're like, exactly. That's what my plan was. Look good because I offered, but know that I wouldn't actually have to do it. But at this point, the U.S. hadn't even offered yet. So there was a German diplomat in the U.S., Franz von Papen.
Von Poppenoff?
Popping off, y'all. Popping off, establishing a spy ring in the U.S. Popping off. Gaston seems to have gotten connected with this spy ring somehow through his work for the Burns Detective Agency. From what I can tell, the British government hired the Burns Agency to keep an eye on the Germans. But the Germans then tried to hire the agency to keep an eye on the British, which would be a conflict of interest, right? So instead of taking on the German job, Burns just went to his employee, Gaston, and was like, why don't you just take on that German contract, like, as a personal gig? And this worked out well for the two of them because they could just pass each other information to report back to their clients.
This way, it's not a conflict of interest. Because technically, that's why.
Yeah, exactly. They also did a lot of, like, making up spy plots. Like, oh, we just discovered the Germans might be thinking of this. You better pay us to investigate it.
Would you call this, Paula, in perhaps some of its looser definitions, war profiteering?
Yeah, maybe I would. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he's making a profit off the war there. You see how I got to that conclusion?
Yeah. Because they're like, oh, y'all are fighting? Well, let's just take some money from you. But the main thing Gaston did was try to make it seem like American captains were giving German sailing dates to British warships, like that America was taking sides before they had actually officially entered the war.
On the German side.
That they were taking the British side. That they were giving, he tried to cook up this thing that made it look like, oh, the Americans have this German information and they're feeding it to the British so that the British can attack these German ships because they know they're coming through.
I mean, let's be real. As alliances lay, as a vague speculation, they probably were.
Yeah. So while all this was going on, in the background, Gaston met a woman named Maud King. Maud was a widow with a huge inheritance from her very wealthy deceased husband.
Ideal
Situation, honestly.
You know when Donald Duck sees a lot of money and the eyes kind of ring round?
Yeah.
Me and Gaston have got the same idea right now.
So at first it seemed like he was just there to help Maud. A group of confidence men in England were scamming her out of her money, and so Means was hired through the Burns Detective Agency to help. Being a confidence man himself, he recognized the grift immediately and shut the whole thing down. And then, like a true gentleman, he took over the grift himself. Side note, the word con comes from confidence game, which I didn't know until I wrote this episode. Actually, I was like, wait a minute, what in the world does this mean? And then I looked it up and I was like, oh.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think it's from convict.
Yeah.
It's from confidence.
Yeah, so basically, like, you gain someone's confidence, and that gives you an in to be able to steal from them.
Or having the confidence to pull something off, I imagine.
So, gaining Maud King's confidence, and definitely having the confidence that he could pull it off, Gaston also gained access to her fortune, and rather than managing it, he managed to spend it. Maud's husband had left her $100,000. It's, 1915, 1914? So this is a shit ton of money.
As they would say in Concord, North Carolina, that ain't chicken feet.
That ain't chicken feet. That's exactly what we grew up saying out there. That ain't chicken feet.
I can hear in your accent, it sounds right.
But Maud's husband had left even more money to charity. $3 million of 1914.
$3 million?
Yeah, of 1914 chicken feet.
What did he do?
He was a lumber baron of some sort. He was like owned a lumber company.
He was made from wood?
He was made from wood. He was Pinocchio.
A lumber baron. I mean, gone are the days where you could be just a baron.
Yeah.
Right?
No, yeah, you can't. Unless you're
Baron
like
of Enterprise.
the son of Donald Trump, and that's just your name, right? Then like you aren't a baron.
You'll put some respect on Baron Trump's name. He'll be president one day. And he's 18 now, Paula, so all those thoughts you've been having.
Oh boy. Now my eyeballs are turning into dollar signs, you know what I'm saying? So $3 million, that's a lot of money that Gaston would have liked to be able to dip into that's currently tied up in charity. So how's he going to get to that money, Matthew? Well, what if he finds a more updated will that says that actually Maud King's husband left her more than that old will that everyone thought was the real will?
I mean, that money's spent at this point, right? The charities have got it, and spent it.
I think it's like in a trust that's being like
Divvied out.
Yes.
You get this amount a year. You get
yes,
this much a year.
Yeah.
Not all charities are created equal. I'll admit that. But you've got to be pretty slimy to be saying, instead of these orphanages getting the money, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I mean, that speaks to a level of moral bankruptcy that I think is just more profound than you can find in your average scumbag.
Look, I will interject here that there's a story that Gaston himself said that the first time he felt like real satisfaction was when he was a child and he stole money out of his mother's purse, blamed it on the maid, and got the maid fired. And he was like, that's when I realized I could do whatever I want.
Gaining satisfaction from that doesn't, to me, I mean, not that I would know, but I'm trying to work out if that's sociopathic behavior or if it's narcissistic behavior. I feel like it's narcissistic behavior.
It does kind of seem like he doesn't seem to care about how his actions affect anyone else. I will, though, say, and this comes later in his timeline, but so he's married. At this point in the story, he is actually married, and they...
To Maud?
No, not to Maud.
He doesn't seem to have the capacity for empathy, is what I'm saying.
He married Julie Means. Yeah, I don't know how much empathy he has, but at one point, one of his children died very young, and he was like, everyone says he was completely and utterly destroyed by it. So it's not that he doesn't have emotional capacity himself, but it doesn't seem like he cares about how other people feel.
If he said his kids died, he's sad for himself.
Yeah, he's sad for himself, which again, is more narcissistic.
It seems like he's a narcissist. I mean, I've got no way. I don't know. I can't diagnose these type of things.
Yeah, armchair diagnosing, but...
To me, that's incredibly narcissistic behavior. And I would know narcissistic behavior, Paula, because I'm so handsome.
Yeah, exactly. You just stare at yourself in the reflection of the water just all the time.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
So Gaston has to find this updated will, right? Which must actually exist. But like, what if he can't find it? He should just make one, right?
I mean, that was my assumption the entire time.
So he made up a fake will, and he showed it to Maud and convinced her that it was real. And why shouldn't she believe it? It says that her husband left her more inheritance than everyone had thought. Like, why she would want to believe that, I would think.
Yeah, your mind would justify that as being fair.
He'd be like, oh, yeah, of course. Yes, there's the signatures that he left me more money.
There it is, Paula. There it is.
Did I say that? Oh, gosh.
Yeah, whenever we're talking about the South, Paula,
Can't help it.
you become almost indecipherable.
No, it's not that bad. Well, just as people in Maud's life are starting to get suspicious of Gaston, he invites her to his family home back in Concord.
Yeah, with his wife and everything. I'm just a good guy. I'm
Just
not
a good
nothing.
guy. On August 27th, he went out and he got a birthday present for Matthew. A gun. I was writing, I was like, why does this date sound familiar? Oh, that's Matthew's birthday. So on August 27th, he bought a gun. On August 29th, Gaston and Maud go out hunting together. And oh, whoops! Maud gets shot and she dies.
He kills her?
Gaston claims he had nothing to do with this death, Matthew. She shot herself accidentally in the back of the head.
Was Hillary Clinton around?
This is literally the story I saw that made me go, wait, I'm sorry, what? We have to do an episode on this guy. Like, so Means goes on trial for the murder of Maud King and for the forging of her husband's will. Means defends himself with the Maud shot herself accidentally story, even though, again, she was shot in the back of the head, had a known fear of guns, and there was no gunpowder residue found on her body, or on her hands. So,
But this, to me, not that I can diagnose it. This, to me, sounds narcissistic. That he does something stupid because he believes he's too clever to get caught.
Yeah. Then he even then claims, Matthew, that, this is a plot against him done by those German spies he used to work for.
I feel like mentioning that's only going to incriminate you more, if I'm honest, at this point.
Well, it's during this trial that the whole German spy ring working for them thing comes out. So I think he probably felt like he had to like pivot and be like, oh, well, now everyone knows about this. So, they must have done this against me.
It just doesn't speak to his character, does it?
No, it doesn't.
And is this a jury case? Because if it is, I mean, a jury are just going to see him as, oh, this guy was working for the enemy.
Well, this is a jury case, but it's being tried in Concord. And the prosecution brought in lawyers from New York City. And so this whole thing gets very much... Concord is a small town. It's a small town in my mind. And I remember it from the 2000s, right? Like, so in the early 1900s...
Yeah.
It's a small town.
And they're seeing it as one of our own being taken down by the big cats in the big city.
Exactly. Yeah. They're already don't trust or like these highfalutin city guys, right? Who think they're, and believe me, Yankees sure do think they're better than country southerner people. I've experienced that. So they were like, hey, hometown boy, son of our mayor, against these big city guys, they find him innocent. Now, there was probably also some jury tampering happening, which we know is a thing that the Means family was already big into practicing. People were probably bribed and or threatened.
And they knew he'd do it because he killed this other woman.
Yeah, exactly. So he's acquitted for the murder, but it was easier to prove that the forged will was forged. So in a separate case trying for that, the people who had signatures on the will were proven to be out of town when it was supposedly signed. And then they were able to prove that the typewriter used to make the document hadn't even been invented yet when the will was supposedly written up. So Gaston looks like he's going to go down for this forged will.
This sounds like it was a technologically advanced case. This is like...
Yeah, if they're able to check all that.
This isn't just something that they went in and out of court on after a few days. This is, no, we're going to get the typewriter, we're going to look it up, we're going to find out. It's like they went to town on this case. It feels like this was a big case.
Yeah, I think so. So feeling like he might go down for this, Gaston says, whoa, wait. Remember that German spy stuff? Drop the charges and I'll tell you where this giant trunk of German spy documents is.
And give me a few weeks so I can...
So I can make some documents.
Make those up.
So they dropped the charges. But guess what? Surprise! There is no trunk of documents.
It's gone.
When that comes out, Gaston's like, what? The people who told me that trunk existed lied to me? I've been scammed. I'll get them if it's the last thing I do. Really, sir? Okay.
Do you know what's easier, Paula?
What?
Just as a way to live life. Do you know what's just so much easier? Everything is so much easier. Just tell the truth. Just tell the truth.
Harder to get rich telling the truth.
Just spend your days telling the truth. It's not that bad.
So Gaston avoids jail for now and moves on to his next scam. Being on trial is expensive and he needs money, so he sends a package from Concord to Chicago through the Southeastern Express Company. A package that definitely, for sure, contained $57,000 for some reason.
And then he got lost, and he claimed it again on insurance.
Gosh, when it arrived in Chicago, Matthew, what do you know? Inside the package, it was just a block of wood. Someone must have stolen the money out of the package, Matthew. That must be what happened.
Yep, that sounds plausible.
The Southeastern Express Company owed him $57,000 because they were supposed to keep track of that package. Oh, except when they investigated, they discovered that the package weighed exactly the same when it left Concord as when it arrived in Chicago. Gaston had packed up and shipped a block of wood.
I won't say good intentions, but he's full of intentions.
He's got big ideas, man, right? He's a creative mind.
He needs a partner, someone to just bounce these ideas off and just troubleshoot some of them.
Be like, maybe we should, I don't know, do this differently. Okay, now we get to the bits of Gaston's life that we kind of already covered in our episode on the strange death of President Harding. So go back and listen to that if you haven't. But William J. Burns is appointed head of the FBI, and he, of course, hires Gaston to be an investigator. This results in Gaston extorting criminals, selling fake liquor licenses during Prohibition, promising to get charges dropped if people paid him, and then, of course, not following through. And the criminals couldn't, say anything about it because they're criminals. It would be outright admitting that they had committed crimes. They were like, yeah, I paid this guy to get my charges dropped, and then he didn't. They have no recourse, right? So
How did he stay alive?
it's a good question. I don't
Have
know.
you seen Boardwalk Empire? Everybody gets killed.
He is actually a character in Boardwalk Empire.
Is he really?
Yeah. It was hard to research him because his episodes about him kept coming up when I Googled his name.
It's not petty crime that these guys were doing. These were huge criminal gang corporations, organizations who would murder anyone for almost any reason.
Yeah, I don't know. That's such a good question. I don't know how he didn't get, taken out. I really don't. But he kept getting away with it. He even put in a request for money from the government to pay an informant that he was working with as part of his job at the FBI. Except there was no informant. He was just pocketing the money. According to his wife, he accepted over $50,000 in bribes. So, they were rich.
I am looking up Gaston Means in Boardwalk Empire.
He's played by Stephen Root, who played the stapler guy in Office Space, but many other things. And actually, it's pretty good casting. He looks very similar to how Gaston looked in real life.
Yeah, and he plays this kind of middleman who is talking to the crime gangs and doing deals for them, but really he's working for himself. Can I just say, Boardwalk Empire, one of the best TV shows I've ever seen.
Wow. It seemed too stressful to watch to me.
It is. It's so good, though. Not for the faint-hearted.
After President Harding's death, all the bad behavior of his cabinet members began to come out, and Gaston was indicted for larceny, conspiracy, and violations of the Volstead Act, which was the Prohibition Act.
Yeah.
Gaston tried everything he could to get out of hot water. He delayed his trial as much as he could. He offered to testify against Attorney General Doherty, who was being investigated for his own scandals. And Gaston's trial couldn't take place while he was busy being a witness in a trial against someone else. Gaston even offered a deal to Doherty. Drop the charges against me and I won't testify against you in your trial. But Doherty wouldn't agree to that.
He's the least trustworthy person I could possibly imagine.
Oh, yeah. Finally, Gaston B. Means is found guilty and goes to jail. And it's while in jail that he wrote the book, The Strange Death of President Harding, with his ghostwriter, Mae Dixon Thacker, who later denounced the book after Gaston kept her royalties for himself. Again, we go into more detail about that in our President Harding episode.
But even that is a con.
Oh, yeah, that book is...
It's all got made up nonsense in. It's full of lies. He's just trying to make some extra money.
Absolutely. He'll say and do whatever it takes.
Two things. In a way, I respect someone with this type of work ethic. But on the other hand, I feel as though, man, imagine if you'd have turned your life to good.
It's so misplaced. He could have done so many things that were actually productive and contributed to a better society with this kind of ability to have an idea and then just pursue pulling it off.
And it's not like he came from, if he came from nothing, he had no money, he had to con and swindle his way on the streets of a big city as a small kid just to earn a living, stealing bread just to stay alive. He had none of that. He came from a wealthy town where he was pseudo aristocracy, almost.
Yeah.
He just was a dirtbag.
Yeah. So once he got out of jail, he worked for a brief time with the National Civic Confederation to hunt down commies. But really, he just embezzled over $100,000 from the organization while making up stories about the Russians he was tracking, who conveniently all went back to Russia right as the NCC was starting to get suspicious about his activities.
I can appreciate anyone who agrees with the idea that communism is one of the worst ideas of all time.
Yeah, it's not great. It's bad.
Probably the worst idea that's ever happened. But I don't know if I just respect this guy. Jeez.
Just the nerve to be able to be like, if I just make up, I'll just make up whatever I need to. And that's how I get people to pay me for stuff, because I've just like made up that there's something they should pay me to investigate. He should have been a crime novelist.
Yeah, he obviously has a capacity to write some crime. He could have been a crime novelist. It's not quite as glamorous, though, is it?
No, it's not.
It's not exciting.
You don't feel smart with all the things that you're getting people to believe.
Part of me feels like, is he getting off on this? You know, is he...
Oh, yeah, he's got to.
Do you need this adrenaline? Imagine his cortisol levels, Paula. To the roof.
Yeah, and his health is not doing great, actually.
This guy's having I don't know how he dies. This guy's having a heart attack. I guarantee it.
This all wasn't enough, Matthew. He had one more con left in him.
Faking his death.
Oh my gosh, that would be the perfect ending. But I don't think so. But this does have to do with something sort of like that, kind of. Maybe the perfect opportunity arose when the Lindberg baby was kidnapped. Now, that story is enough for its own episode that I may do one day, but I'll just say here that Charles Lindbergh was a famous aviator, like hugely famous, whose 20-month-old son was kidnapped from his home and held for ransom. And this received major newspaper coverage. Gaston had connections to a family friend of the Lindberghs, Evelyn Wash McLean. Now, Evelyn
Wash McLean.
Or Walsh.
I must say, no one's called Evelyn Wash McLean.
I just said it weird, but yeah, Walsh. Fun fact about Evelyn, she owned the Hope Diamond, which is supposedly cursed.
Good for her.
So she got money. So Gaston convinces Evelyn that he was in touch with the kidnappers, and for the low fee of $100,000, he would pay them the ransom. Now, they had only asked for like $50,000, by the way, officially. That did go up, I think, to $75,000 at some point, but he was like, no. They want $100,000 plus, Matthew, $4,000 to cover his travel expenses.
And it's a dangerous job.
So dangerous.
He cares about this baby.
Oh, he cares so much. And he definitely knows where the baby is.
Oh, of course he knows where the baby is. It'd be crazy. You wouldn't say that you're going to do this if you didn't know where the baby was.
He wouldn't say. Exactly. Like, no one would lie about that. So he would pay them the ransom and find out where the baby was, get the baby back. So Evelyn paid him the money. But Gaston, of course, never produced the missing baby, right? I mean, there was a lot of, we had to change the meeting point, and the handoff got rescheduled, and now they're demanding $35,000 more. Meanwhile, Gaston is traveling all over the country on a wild goose chase of his own making, spending Evelyn's money. Evelyn gets wise to the whole thing when she's asked to cough up that extra $35,000. She's like, okay, something's not right. And the authorities get involved. Gaston's arrested and put on trial again, but he never went back on his story. He even kept claiming he could get the baby back after the baby's body had been discovered. Like, I don't know how you don't go, yeah, you're right, I made it up, when they're like, no, we found the baby and he did not make it. Like, he's like, no, I know where the baby is. It's like, what is your... But the jig was up. And no more flims were going to be flammed. Gaston was sent to prison. Matthew just shook his head at me when I said that. I just want everyone to know.
I shook my head at you because I know how happy you were saying that sentence.
I wrote it in all caps in my script. No more flims were going to be flammed. Gaston was sent to prison for 17 years, where he died from gallbladder complications.
I mean, he must be getting on in age as well at this point, right?
He was 59, I think.
Okay.
So he wasn't crazy old. But
not crazy old then.
Not super young.
I can't imagine gallbladder complications is a good way to go either. That sounds painful.
No, I don't think so. Oh, you know what? I didn't even talk about how he scammed people by selling mail order glass caskets. Oh, what a romp through swindle land this has been. What a scoundrel. And not in the Jack the Lad kind of way that's lovable, you know what I mean?
Yeah. He's not a lovable rogue, is he?
No, he's not. He's not a man of the people.
Arsehole.
Yeah, he's just a dick. What a wild life. Like, seriously, like, what?
You can't say the man didn't live.
That's true. He read that poem, What Will You Do With Your One Wild precious life. And he said, I'm going to get one over on as many people as I can.
Bon Jovi said that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. It's your life. It's now or never, Gaston. You're not going to live forever.
What a poet.
From now on, it starts tonight. It starts tonight!
Thank you so much, Paula, for doing this episode.
You're welcome, Matthew.
It's been great. I love stories like this. I mean, they're terrible, and I wouldn't want to be involved with anyone remotely like this. So never con me, because I will come at you with the force of God. But
oh boy,
I
need to go make some changes, because hopefully Matthew won't realize that I've been conning him this whole time. This isn't a podcast. It's not going on any feed. We just record it, and then I keep it on my computer.
I love stories like this, so thank you so much for bringing it to everyone. It's been a lot of fun. And this guy, well, he sucks, but fun to hear about. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, then we'd love it if you could tell someone about the show who you think might enjoy listening to it too. Force them. Hover over them. Force them to download it. What would Gaston Means do?
Yeah, say...
He would just tell me that he got someone to do it, actually. So don't be like that. Be honourable. Force someone to download the podcast today. We'd appreciate that a lot. And if you are a listener of this show and you haven't left a review, a 5-star review on your podcatcher of choice, just one word on a review that's positive is super helpful for us in all those type of algorithmic ways that no one fully understands.
You could leave words like this from SO97GamerXD, who gave us 5 stars. Oh my gosh, thank you. I listen to every episode. Always engaging, enlightening, and amusing. Even as a history major / aficionado, I always learn something new. The interaction between Paula and Matthew is charming and never forced. Give them a listen. Wow, we've conned them. Never forced, always charming.
Paula, are we done now? You said this was going to take less time. I need to not be talking to you anymore.
Yeah, we're done. Get out of here.
Until next time, everyone. Thank you, and we'll see you. Bye.
And don't you forget it.